available. Please ensure your microphones are muted. But before we begin, I would ask Councillor John A. McKeever to lead us in prayer. Thank you, Mr. McKeever.
Heavenly Father, we thank you once again for the opportunity to gather here, both in the chamber and online, to debate and to discuss the various things that we have on the agenda before us. We thank you for all that is being done for our islands here and all those that help us to ensure that we do our work to the best of our abilities. Teach us to know when to open our mouths, but also teach us when to hold our tongues when things aren't going the way we had hoped. Give us the humility to realize that there are some things that we can't change, but also give us strength and courage to change those things that we can. Thank you for all our staff, and we especially welcome our new Chief Executive, Lord, and that you be with him and that you give him strength and courage to carry out his duties, and that we also support him as much as we can as councillors to ensure that he gets his work done. We thank you for all our staff, from the Bud to Barra, Lord, for all the work that they do and the wonderful way that they help us anytime that we need assistance, Lord. Be with them and protect them from people that give them a bad mouth at times, and after they come to decisions, hard decisions that they have to make as they find themselves in the difficult situations that we are in these days. Things have changed, Lord, and things are difficult to comprehend at times, but we ask that you give us the means and the way to help our staff as much as possible to protect them from these evil instances. Lord, we think of the children as well, Lord, and we ask that you be with them, especially now coming up to holiday time, that you protect them as some of them might go to distant lands, and that you give them journeys, the meshes for their journey, Lord, and return them safely here once everything is done. Be with the teachers as well. Hope they have a peaceful time during the summer holidays, Lord. Give them rest and recuperation, and give them the strength and the courage to carry on, Lord, because it's difficult. The world that we're in now, Lord, things have changed so much. What was once right is now wrong, and what was wrong is acceptable. Lord, we ask that more people would look to you for the guidance and the care, Lord, and encouragement as well to do our jobs to the best of our ability. Lord, be with those that are mourning at this time as well, suffering the loss of loved ones or colleagues or neighbours or friends. And help them, help their families, Lord, to get over the sad loss and look ahead, Lord, although they can look back at the good times as well. And although it's good to remember those that we have lost, Lord, it's also good to acknowledge new life as well. And we congratulate all new parents, and that the children will grow up, Lord, with your protection and your guidance. Lord, we have many things to be thankful for. And we ask that people would look to your word, Lord, for the guidance that only you can give, that world leaders would realize that the futility of fruitless gain. Help them to read your word and to obey your commandments, Lord, to love one another. And Lord, we again ask you to guide us as we debate on the different topics we have on our agendas here during the series of meetings. Thank those that have prepared these reports for us, that allows us to look at each item and to come to decisions that will be to the benefit of the majority we are here to represent. We thank you for the privilege of doing that, Lord, and we ask that you go before us now. Forgive us our many sins. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. McKeever. The meeting is now being recorded. In regard to the conduct of the meeting, a reminder of the following. If you're a member of the committee attending remotely, please leave your camera on and your microphone off. Officers attending remotely, please leave both off unless you are called to speak, to report or answer a question. A reminder to members and officers in the chamber of the queuing system. The chair controls the mics. First in the queue flashes green, the remainder are solid green. The chair will allow each flashing mic in which will change to red. Only 2 mics on the floor can be red at one time. If you wish to come back on a question, please leave your mic on. An officer speaking to the reports, I would advise you to do the same. Committee members will be given priority. In regards to declarations of interest, members must leave the chamber or end the call remotely. The presentation accompanying item 3 will be taken in private. Finally, a reminder that the meeting is being recorded and will be made available on the Coroner's website following the meeting. Before we proceed to formal business, I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome our new Chief Executive, Martin Joyce, to his place, and we look forward to him working with us as a committee in the years ahead of us. I'd also like to take this opportunity to pay tribute to the late Norman A. MacDonald, our former convener and a member of this committee for many, many years. And I wish to pay tribute to his dedicated public service over the years and his service to this committee and his contributions to this committee, which were always informed by his deep knowledge and love for the communities that he served. And I want to extend our sympathies and condolences to Pat and the family. So item 1 is a minute of the meeting of the 24th of March 2026, and that's for approval. Agreed. Thank you. Item 2 is declarations of interest. Members are asked to declare any interests they have in any items of the agenda. It would be helpful if members express why they're declaring interest in the item concerned. Mr. MacDonald, sorry.
Board of HHP.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I declare an interest item 6 as a member of the HHP board.
I don't think it's necessary for you to leave the meeting. It's up to yourselves, I think. Anyone else? Oh, sorry, George. Sorry. Councillor Murray.
Chair, yes, I'll declare an interest. I'm on the board of TIG.
Take.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm a member of HHP.
Thank you, Mr. McInnes. Duly noted.
Chair.
Mr.
I'm
McNeil.
also a member of TIG.
You were or are?
I am.
You are. Very good. Anyone else?
We all have to leave.
Leader.
Are we playing TIG here? It's going to...
Very good. Okay then. Okay, we're now going to go into private to consider item 3. The relevant officers and members of the committee should remain, and I will ask all presentation report. Thank you. We'll now go back into public for the remainder of the meeting. Item 4 is performance monitoring. Report by the Chief Officer of Economic Regeneration. Report provides an end-of-year update on strategic priorities aligned to the Economic Regeneration Service, and Anne Murray will speak to the report.
Thank you, Chair. So the report in front of you provides a 25-26 end-of-year progress report on the performance of the service against the strategic priorities and the actions that were in the Economic and Community Regeneration Business Plan. There's also an update on key areas of strategic risk and the resources, both financial and staffing, that we have in place to implement the business plan. There's a lot of other reports on the agenda that go into more detail, and it is a long report, so I'll just draw your attention to section 7. That provides a detailed update on activity against our business plan priorities by the end of the financial year. So hopefully there you can see that there's been good progress against a range of areas, including the Eilean Steel. Some key projects there being delivered, including Callanish. There's been investment supported in key infrastructure, particularly in terms of marine assets, particularly been supported through shared prosperity funding. There's been a lot of success around leverage and delivery of external funding programmes, including RCGF and the Community Regeneration Partnership. Business Gateway is providing strong support against in terms of business growth and startup, and there's good activity across housing, culture and heritage, planning, and all the diverse services that are within economic and community regeneration. So as I said, there's a lot of crossover with some of the other reports on the agenda today, so I won't go into detail. I'll just also draw your attention to section 7.42. So one of the indicators that we're measuring is cost per museum visit. There were some anomalies with that over the last couple of years that we now seem to have resolved, and we're now in line with comparator authorities elsewhere in Scotland. So members are being asked to note the progress in the report. There is financial performance referenced at section 8, and there'll be a full revenue outturn reported to PNR. That information wasn't ready for this report, but it has now been done, and our outturn was slightly under budget, although as previously noted in the report, there have been some issues to deal with in terms of lower than anticipated income in homeless accommodation due to debts, and also lower than forecast income. And we've got some issues with the industrial property income as well, and our ability to charge more compared to what we're having to pay out in respect of fees and charges and other running costs. But we are actively managing and reviewing these areas across the course of the year. So happy to take any questions on any of the subjects covered in the report.
Thank you, Anne. Any questions from members this time? Councillor Carl McLean.
Thanks, Chair. I'm not a member of your committee, but I'd like to look at Mrs. Murray, if you can look at 7.11 onwards. It's support growth and resilience within the fisheries and aquaculture sector. I'm just making a comment here. There seems to be a fair amount of financial assistance gone into this sector. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm saying it's good. Is there a bald figure of what goes into fisheries and aquaculture in 1 year or within a term? I'm putting that into the context of how much is going into crofting. And I say this not in any disparaging way, but I say there would seem to be an imbalance. Would I be correct?
Yes, in a sense, it is quite noticeable that we have been in a position to invest quite a bit in terms of the fisheries sector over the last few years. That's been related to specific funding that we've had available to us in terms of food and drink, particularly through the Shared Prosperity Fund. And there's also funding coming through the Community Regeneration Programme. So it's not a pot that sits there every year. It's that these specific opportunities have been there to invest in particularly assets that were owned by the Comhairle that were needing some investment to benefit the sector. I think we can look at opportunities that might come up for, the food production sector in terms of crofting as well, and just try and take advantage of these opportunities that come through. There's a report at PNR about kind of the Good Food Nation plan of Scottish Government, so there might be opportunities that come through off the back of that around the crofting sector as well.
Yeah, just say, Chair, that I see that in relation to a £50,000 to £60,000 help or part of agriculture, what I would class as agriculture, it pales into insignificance in what has been given to the fisheries and aquaculture part of the islands. Just mentioning that.
Thank you, Mr. McLean. Any other comments or observations on this report? If not, it's there for noting. Thank you. Move on now to item 5. It's Outer Hebrides Local Strategy for 26, 27, 2030 to 31. Report seeks approval of the final Outer Hebrides Local Housing Strategy following feedback from peer review process, recommendations from Scottish Government and a formal public consultation. And Angela Smith's going to speak to the report, to the strategy.
Thank you, Chair. So the LHS Act Appendix 1 was prepared following extensive consultation, as you're aware, culminating in the formal consultation process that took place between December and March of this year, December 2025, March this year. I was thereafter submitted to Scottish Government and for the peer review process. And that took place over the same period. Feedback from the peer review and Scottish Government review was largely very good. There are a number of additions and clarifications sought, which we have responded to. They're outlined in the body of the report. I don't plan to go through them all, but we also had positive feedback from HHP and some comments from their staff. We've responded to these as appropriate. To the public consultation, there was only 4 responses, which was quite disappointing, but as I outlined in the report, it could be indicative of the lengthy consultation and extensive consultation period that went before that. We consulted throughout the islands over a period of 2 years, and that was raised by Scottish Government as one of the very positives, one of the positive aspects of the LHS process. So, as I mentioned, these responses are outlined in the report as well, and we've considered and incorporated comments as appropriate. So, the LHS is now seeking formal recommendation for approval to the Comhairle, and thereafter it'll be published on the Comhairle's website with work on any new pieces of work commencing immediately thereafter. So, happy to take any comments.
Any comments? Mr. McCormack?
Thank you very much indeed, Chair, and thank you very much indeed for this report, which is very comprehensive, and I found it very interesting to read. And I don't want to comment on a number of places, but there is one area that I would like to comment on specifically, which is in Chapter 6, page 97. And in particular, I'm talking about fuel poverty. The points that you make on fuel poverty in this document are absolutely accurate. The definition of fuel poverty that you give here in the second paragraph is absolutely bang on. And later, you make reference on page 106 to the fact that levels, this is information from TIG, levels of fuel poverty are likely to be underestimated. And then you make reference to the advice and reporting of the Fuel Poverty Advisory Panel, Scottish Fuel Poverty Advisory Panel. Now, the issue of fuel poverty is something that has figured hugely in the work of the Poverty Action Group. And the leader and I have indeed pursued the matter with both Scottish Government and UK Government. I would have to say the responses were disappointing, and that's an underestimated statement. But it is such an important matter for these islands that I think I would like to suggest that it should have a priority all of its own for fuel poverty. You know, that there should be a strategy to take forward issues associated with fuel poverty. I'm not trying to suggest where that should happen, but I think it's something that is beyond the scope of the Poverty Action Group, is basically what I'm saying. It needs to be much more structured than that. And one of the points that we learned in the Poverty Action Group in consultation with the Fuel Poverty Advisory Panel is that in the year before the election, over £1 billion of money that was set aside for fuel poverty was not allocated. I don't understand that at all, but we could certainly have used potentially all of it, I suspect, because our problem is huge. We're talking in the Western Isles possibly something like 20,000 houses that are in fuel poverty. And we really need to do something about that. And that's why I'd like to suggest, Chair, I don't quite know how to take that forward, but that in addressing fuel poverty, it should be something of a main plank of our policies going forward. And in addition to that, I'd like to suggest that in terms of alleviating fuel poverty, there are two principal things that we need to do to homes. We have to insulate them appropriately. And so many of our homes are just not insulated at all, especially in the rural areas. HHP has been very successful in insulating its homes. So the concern is for private sector homes, essentially. So we need to look at the insulating of these homes. I know of homes that have been insulated internally, for example. It's a huge disruption, but those properties that I visited after the internal insulation was installed are delighted with the difference it makes to the warmth of the home and the reduction in their bills. So it's something well worth doing. The second thing I wanted to mention, Chair, was the fact that it has come to my attention just recently that 3 homes in my ward have recently had solar panels fitted. And in these 3 homes, the electricity usage has dropped. The cost to the residents has just collapsed. And that is a very, very positive outcome. And I would like to think that we could also, maybe along with the fuel poverty aspiration, have our own campaign to make sure that locally people do pick up on the schemes that are currently available, and if necessary, establish a scheme of our own, because it makes such a difference to people who have this. I just have to leave it to your advice, Chair, on to how to take this forward, but I very much think it should be a #1 priority for the Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McConnell. You make excellent points as usual. The challenge of fuel poverty should be the thread that's running through all our policies and trying to help fight it. I'm just wondering if I can take the leader in here, and it might be something we can pursue through the Islands group, with our colleagues in Eilean and Shetland as well, and make representations to Scottish Government regarding the monies that you mentioned that haven't come to us to address fuel poverty. And then I'll let Angela come back in on the insulation and the what was it again? The solar panels.
Yeah.
Okay. Peter, thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. And like yourself, I agree with the comments that Councillor McCormack's been making there. I think it's definitely something we can take forward through the Island Strategic Group with our colleagues in Eilean and Shetland. I also think there's maybe a bit more we could do. It might be something to put on the energy MOUG in terms of further discussion on a bit more focused work on. I think I had a brief discussion with Angus earlier this morning, and some of the things we're talking about was, you know, there are actually quite a lot of schemes out there, and just maybe having a resource or a way to point people in the right direction. I mean, the point about the solar panels, I mean, that's fantastic. That's literally addressing people's bills directly. But how are people able to access that, and which schemes are available for them to do it? I think we do have some of the stuff available on our website, but maybe it's just about more of an awareness raising campaign that we can do as a council. But like I say, I think nationally, if there's £1 billion going unspent on fuel poverty while we're suffering, that's a ridiculous situation to be in. And yeah, we should be doing all we can to access as much of that funding as we can.
Yeah, there's definitely a role for us to raise awareness of service available, and perhaps we're overdue an energy MOUG to address that, put it on the agenda. Angela, do you want to come back in? Sorry, Angela. Someone lights.
Sorry.
That's us.
Okay, I just wanted to say, Councillor McCormack, I'm very glad you raised this fuel poverty issue. It's a massive issue in our islands, and it will be forming one of the major strands in the LHS. There are 2 actions, that a number of actions within this chapter, within this outcome. But we at 2.3, action 2.3, will be reviewing the membership of the Fuel Poverty Action Group and increasing the frequency of meetings. And we also hope to develop and deliver a new fuel poverty action plan, which will incorporate a number of things in respect of fuel poverty that you've raised. So we'll be in touch with a number of you over the coming months to form and contribute to part of this group. So I'll ask Lorraine to come in on insulation.
Thanks, Lorraine.
Okay, thanks, Chair. You'll remember a few months ago we had a presentation from Warmworks about the HESAB scheme and how successfully that is operating locally and continues to operate really successfully. We were able to bid for extra funding last year, and this year we've bid for 2.3 million of funding towards insulation. When it comes to solar panels, the Eco4 Flex money was the UK government made a decision to change the usage of that and not to carry on with the eco scheme. And the focus is going to be on solar panels and battery packs. And we're waiting for that to filter through to the Scottish Government, to Warmer Homes, to see how that is going to be progressed. But solar panels and battery packs are going to be forthcoming. Funding for that is our understanding.
Thank you, Lorraine. Okay. Councillor Donald McSween online. Okay, maybe we'll come back to anyone else. Councillor Ray McKenzie. Good.
Well, I was actually, I mean, the poverty action is extremely important. It wasn't what I was going to come in on originally, but I've been sitting listening to it, and it's ironic that this country, which I mean Scotland, is producing enough energy for the whole country, and also these islands should be producing enough energy to have free energy. But unfortunately, it seems to be people coming in and the profits going elsewhere and all the rest of it. That's just the point I'd like to make on that one. And we've had governments who are bringing forward poverty inducing projects like pensions and two-child caps and things like that. Anyway, I want to get back to another point. Incidentally, on the solar panels, again, it's a cost matter too, and things would have to be reduced an awful lot, because people of a certain vintage look at them and say, I'm going to be dead by the time I get my money's worth out of this. I say that when I look in the mirror, actually, you know, so there may be an answer to that, and maybe I can get them right away. But I wanted to go back to page 146, if I can move off, you know, that the poverty thing at the moment, and if I can get to page 146, it says somewhere anyway that the residential estate is currently operating at capacity, but somewhere else it says that there is space in the homes, and I'm not quite sure where that says, but it's additional expansion of community alarm systems mean that more vulnerable people can stay in their own homes, and I know that's a very positive thing. But there is a point where it says there is space in the homes, and yet it says there, and I'm sure I read it, but the residential estate is currently operating at capacity. So can somebody explain the difference between the two things?
Angela, are you able to decipher that?
These were comments we received from our colleagues in Health and Social Care. They were asked to respond to capacity at the time of the LHS's publication. And in terms of their workforce and their ability to provide care, they were operating at full capacity at that stage. So.
Okay. Okay, Deputy Leader, Ms. McHughes. Who's got the lights on?
It's just following on from what Councillor McCormick was saying in relation to the private households in the Outer Hebrides or in the Western Isles here. HHP have just gone into partnership with OVO, and they're going to install solar panels on over 500 properties in the Western Isles in this current financial year. And that's with a company that's based in Perthshire. So it's very important, you know, that we're all fully aware of what is available, and some of the energy companies like OVO are operating in partnership with others. But that's significant, and they're targeting the ones that have the washed energy rating houses. Because one of the things is if you're looking at an HHP house, you'd rather have one of the newer houses than one of the older houses where heating costs are greater, but you're paying the same amount, you know, on a monthly basis for, regardless of what your energy rating is. But that's a significant, you know, from when we're looking at the number of households in the Western Isles, and that's right across from Barra all the way up to Lewis. You know, there's a breakdown of the geographical distribution of it, and they're targeting it in two areas where they'll be sure that those that are doing installations will get access to accommodation, you know, at certain particular times where it's going to be difficult in some areas. So that's a model that could be replicated, you know, by the Comhairle or in the private sector.
Absolutely. Vice Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I mean, I've considered solar panels as well, and I look at the mirror two ray. But what disappoints me most sometimes is I look out the window and see what it's doing in the sky. But we've seen a plethora of solar panels across the islands getting installed in houses now, and it's encouraging to see. Can I ask, Angela, there's a figure here for the target by 2027 of no more than 55% of pensioners in fuel poverty, and we've got no more than 20% of households are in fuel poverty as well for the same year. Given the demographic of the island, can you tell me where we are just now and how, you know, we're trying to get to 55%? Is that an ambitious target, or are we being ambitious enough, do you think?
It's ambitious.
Sorry.
It's probably an ambitious target, if I'm honest with you, at the moment. We haven't, the only intelligence we have at the moment on fuel poverty is coming from TIG and from the Scottish House Condition Survey. And I would say they probably underestimate the volume of fuel poverty that we have, the Scottish House Condition Survey at any rate, and TIG would probably be able to give you more accurate data. The last fuel poverty survey that TIG did is a couple of years old now, and there's references to it in the document. In terms of what Scottish Government expects from us, it's probably very ambitious. Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. McSween online has got Wi-Fi difficulties, so he just wanted to add a reminder that the number of these measures that we're talking about are available via the Croft House Grant Scheme. And also, as someone who has solar panels, they need batteries to be effective. So just to note these comments. So the recommendations, Mr. McLean. This will be the last interview.
Looking at page 52, I was just examining. By the way, the report is very comprehensive, and one of the more interesting reports actually that I've read for a while. Actually, it gives but the report seems to be, and I probably agree that there's startling figures regarding the demographics of our islands, and it says on page 52 that the proportion of 16 to 20-year-olds is lower than it is in Scotland, and these are our working population. There seems to be a migration, and you probably say of into the island, but it seems to be of a age profile of 55 plus, which is problematic. I'm not going to say anything, but I'm not saying that I'm problematic, but that's a fact. So there's, and it says there that there is, we've also got a what I would call and what you yourself call an aspirational figure of housing of 45% urban to 55% rural. And I take it in the document that you question that, because at the end of the day, if you look at page 52, and you see the young people of our island, the young working people, are wanting to migrate towards Stornoway. Isn't that what it's saying in there? That there is a significant number migrate from rural areas to larger settlements, particularly Stornoway. Maybe that happens in Lewis, in Lewis as well. They've got a problem as well. I've noticed there that with the aging population. But so therefore, if there is this request, demand, desire for our young in our population, in our islands, to migrate to Stornoway, and I don't blame them, because if they're working in Stornoway and that's where the work is, then surely we've got to look at these figures again and say, why should we have this noose round our necks? And I would call it a noose that says to us that we should be 40%, 45% and 55%. Is this a time to re-look at these figures?
Well, the strategy is reviewed annually, Calma, and we have in the past reviewed it and sometimes decided to retain the figure and sometimes not to. But I'll let Angela come in and
Yeah, thank you for your comments. Yes, there has been a pattern over the last number of years, few decades actually, of younger people moving to central population, and we have responded to any kind of policy requirement on an annual basis. Where our aspiration is to build 55% to 45%, there's always room annually to update these figures. There's also scope to look at how we can, within the LHS, within the framework and within the Strategic Housing Investment Plan, to consider how we can encourage people to, if they want to live rurally, to live rurally. You know, there's scope for looking at how we can encourage communities to retain their young people. You know, that's what we plan to do over the course of the LHS. There are things that encourage people to move into centres of population, whether it's transport, whether it's things to do. You know, they've got access to services as well, services, sport, you know, social things like that, schools as well. But there is scope over the LHS period to look at all of these matters. And I hope that these things will be picked up by the Community Planning Partnership over the coming years, particularly with new local economic improvement plan as well. So,
thank you. Angus, very briefly, please.
Yes, thank you very much. I just wanted to make it absolutely clear that I know that any monies that have come our way for use in fuel poverty or whatever it is have been very well spent in the islands. I know that. And what I'm arguing for is more money to come into our areas, more schemes to be made available to local people so they can have their solar panels and battery. Because they're hugely beneficial. So that's the argument I'm making. I'm not in any way saying that we're not doing the best with the money that we get. We need so much more money to make a big change to the situation in the islands. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay. Do members agree with the recommendation at 3.1? I just want to thank Angela and her team, Lorraine, for all the hard work they put into putting the strategy together. Item 6 is South Harris Voids Agreement between the CORA and Eilean Housing Partnership. The report seeks approval to proceed with the agreeing of the terms of Voids Agreement with HHP in respect of any rental loss incurred as a direct result of the Eilean and Stru housing development in Leverborough. And Lorraine's going to speak to the report.
Thank you, Chair. Members may recall that there were some challenges associated with this development at the time. The initial proposal in the SHIP was for 6 homes to be built in South Harris. And then when a site was identified at Ferry Road, there was capacity for 12 homes on that site. So planning permission was sought for the 12 in 2 phases of 6, although at that stage there was no time frame for the second phase to be developed. In response to this planning application, the local community initiated a campaign for the 12 houses to be developed in the 1 phase, citing a resurgence in community and economic activity within the area. So in response to this, and in order to mitigate against any risk to HHP of oversupply and to provide sufficient assurance to them at the time in proceeding with the development, there was discussions around a voids agreement which wasn't finalised at that time. So it is proposed that we now proceed to conclude this voids agreement with respect to the date of commencement, duration, the number of voids and contribution to rental loss. There are currently 5 applicants on the waiting list for South Harris and no voids in the area, although 6 of the properties in the Lever Borough development are currently under occupied, but full rent has been paid on them, so that isn't an issue when it comes to rental loss. So it is anticipated that this agreement will act largely as contingency and should not be required very much, if at all. However, it would provide a helpful model for any other future potentially similarly challenging developments should they arise, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Lorraine. Report. Councillor Kens MacLeod.
Thanks very much, and thanks for this, Lorraine. This obviously happened before my time as a councillor, but I'm at a loss why there's a need for this. HHP said there's a need for 6. There's 12 filled, and in fact more than 12 have been filled because some folk have moved out of the Crescent into private accommodation, and that's been filled as well. And as you say, there's still another 5 on that waiting list there. So I think just going by the waiting list, I think is probably a wrong way to go. And given the ongoing demand for housing, and hopefully going ahead with the ones in Tarbert now, I'm just questioning why we need this agreement. I hear what you're saying about a template, but why are we going to spend a lot of time drawing this up and putting it in a place when it's not going to be needed for South Harris, because that's full, and subsequent to now any vacancies that come up, that will be just like general stuff for HHP, and surely that's part of their general work to ensure that houses are let anyway. And I can't see why the corridor should be funding houses that they haven't let if it's down to maybe their own letting policy or whatever.
Well, we are the strategic leads for this. And I'll let Angela, Lorraine come back in just now, but that there is no cost incurred at the moment and no voids. So it's a contingency plan.
Sorry, yeah, so the voids agreement would only cover any rental loss over and above the standard void period for a property to be let. And I think some of the concern was as well that through transfer allocations, so people transferring to the Lever Borough, the new builds may leave voids in the older properties within the area. So there was some concern over that. But it has been the case that there aren't any voids to date. So that's really encouraging. And we would hope that that position would continue. But as stated, it would offer a proposal moving forward should there be any further situation where the HHP were concerned about risk of oversupply, that the COLA are willing to enter into some form of voids agreement with them to show that we have confidence in what we are asking them to build.
Michael,
yeah. But then should that not be a general housing void rather than a South Harris void, because there are no voids in South Harris. So why, if we're looking at it for contingency for going forward, it should be a general voids agreement between the Comhairle and HHP rather than based purely on the South Harris one. Because South Harris is full, and we know it's full, and the fears that they had that the agreement was originally mooted about have been shown to be unfounded, and all the houses are full with another waiting list for another 5 at least. We also have in the next couple of years a ferry going to be based in South Harris. CMAL are going ahead with providing 2 ferries across there. There is going to be increased demand for housing down there. So I can't see the justification for going for one based on South Harris. I can understand what you're saying for housing generally, but I can't see why it has to be just based on South Harris. But it's maybe my way of seeing it.
Okay, Mr. Finnegan, do you want to come in?
Thanks, Chair. I think this is a pre-agreement, isn't it? So you're just finalising a pre-agreement that was already made, So you're just finalising this. Is there a time limit on this? I can't remember if it was in the report. 10 years.
Yeah, that is to be finalised. So it would be between 3 and 5 years if we were to enter into discussions with HHP about that.
Because the only thing I'd say is obviously it's been proved that it's not been needed. And so we have to finalise the agreement, but really now we have to limit that time as short as possible, because it's actually been shown. And if you're getting you get that natural migration anywhere where people will leave one house, and we see it in Cliassamon all the time, people moving into Tarbert. As soon as the Tarbert house becomes available, people will try and come from Cliassamon because it's that much further out. So really it's been proved that that's not been necessary. We have to finalise the agreement because that's what we agreed at the beginning. But really we'd have to try and put that limit. That time is really up now, really, in a way as I see it, because it wasn't needed at the time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Finnegan. Any more questions, comments? Sorry? I can see that. Sorry, Councillor Dean.
Thanks very much, Chair. I thought maybe you were not wanting me to speak, sir.
I don't really, but go
on. I would, yeah, I mean, voids agreement, I don't see any problem with that. I think we should support it. I think as a strategic local authority, if it's going to help ease some of the risk, I think, from HHP or any developer to develop housing now. And I mean, it came in a recent conversation I had with HHP regarding some development in North Hughes, I think, and if voids agreement will help ease that risk for them and encourage them to build more, I'm totally for it. And I think as a local authority, as strategic lead, I think we should, you know, if there is, if that's going to be help them. So I'll support that.
Thank you very much. Okay, the recommendations are at 3.1 for your agreement. Great, thank you. Move on now to item 7, the museum service update. This report provides an update on Museum Newland's progress regarding museum accreditation return and the exhibitions programme. Colin George Morrison will speak to the report.
Thank you, Chair. Pleased to finally be able to confirm that both Museum Newland and Stornoway and Museum Newland Leanaclich regained full accreditation status on the 30th of April 2026. It has felt like and has been a long journey since March 24, when the accreditation status of both museums was provisional accreditation for 12 months. Now, we went back to the accreditation panel with a report by the deadline of March 25, and it was delays on their side due to staff shortages and a backlog that's taken this long. But good news for the service, and it's a testament to the hard work done by the team that we've reached this stage. Often with these things, there's an asterisk, however, and that asterisk or however is in section 7. And there are a number of actions or points that we continue to need to report back to them on, not least, as members will be aware, at 7.3, our new collection resource centres or collection engagement centres, as they're being labelled now. We have made progress on that and have passed the expression of interest stage of the National Heritage Lottery Fund process, and we're able to now go to a full application for up to 10 million. So an awful lot of work for us to do over the next few months with Anne, with Cala, with Dan McPhail. So that will be a priority for the team. As members are aware, the Calmac 175 Years of Calmac Ferries exhibition was launched on the 22nd of May. So a big thank you to members and officers who supported that event. We've had a lot of visitors in the door, as you'd expect, with it being high season. So look forward to that continuing over the summer before the exhibition then goes to Uist at the end of August. And just finally, Chair, I think I'll take this opportunity to address Monday openings. I'm aware that the convener and a couple of other members have had representations about Monday openings of the museum. Hopefully by now, the position is clear and has been consistent for a number of years. We can open on Mondays. We are open to requests from cruise companies or other companies. The costs are minimal. It's just to cover the costs of cleaning and the visitor assistance. And we do have 4 bookings in for Mondays this summer. I think one's been, if I'm not mistaken, and 3 to come. But that's not to say that we can't have more. So hopefully that's clear. I'll maybe circulate an email to members just so they have the costings and have the detail on that in case anybody else is asked. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Colin George. Any questions from members? Mr. McLean.
I'm not on your committee, but I thank Colin George for this, particularly for his wording in 2.2. That it celebrates the people from the Butt to Barra and beyond who are do work in the port offices, piers and on the ferries. He's very specific. And it's good to note that these individual people
Good. Councillor Ian McCauley.
Thanks, Chair, and thank you very much for the report. I wondered about the donations that are coming in to the museum. And as you mentioned yourself, I'm going to go back to Monday, by the way. I'm sorry about this. I wonder if as I would anticipate that there is a larger amount of donations in now because of the larger cruise ships coming in. Would that extra money warrant opening on Mondays throughout the summer?
Happy to circulate an email to members on the detail of the donations. I don't think that the level of donations is such a high amount that it would allow that. There are a number of things that we have to do as a team, as a service each year. For example, we have to renew the cases in which some of our collections are stored and presented at exhibitions. The cost of these cases are going up each year. So what we're trying to do is incrementally in each year, buy a case or buy 2 cases as and when we can. So I don't think that the donation levels will be at such a level that it would allow us to open on Mondays, unfortunately.
Thanks very much. Since you're doing the report anyway, maybe you could specify how much would it take. Thank you very much.
Sorry, Chair, just to say as well, Councillor McCauley makes a good point. I think the other factor about it is it's not just the costs. Every museum has to have a day closed where they're able to do tidying up, cleaning and refreshing the galleries. So I think, we've often been asked the question, when there's a cruise ship in on a Monday, could we switch it out for a Saturday? It's really important that we have consistent opening hours, and we have to also remember that it's for the public here, members of the communities here, not just for visitors. So it's difficult to try and keep everybody happy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Morrison. Councillor Kent MacLeod.
Yeah, I just want to congratulate Colin George and the 2 teams for regaining the accreditation status. I know it's a lot of hard work and a lot of time was put into it, so well done to everyone, and hopefully have a very busy season as well.
Thank you, Mr. MacLeod. Okay, the recommendations are 3.1 for your agreement. Item 8 is the Scottish Government Economic Development Funding Update. Report provides an update on this funding secured for economic development projects in the Outer Hebrides for 25-26 and provides detailed opportunities available during 26-27. And Alison is going to speak to the report.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So,
Thank you, Alison.
thanks, Chair.
Can't hear
as
you. We're just going to leave and come back and
We could hear you, Alison, online. So.
What? Thanks for that. I was beginning to question myself.
we can hear you now in the chamber as well. So thank you. Please
Thanks.
proceed.
Thanks, Chair. So, as the Chair's just said, the report provides an overview of the work of the Economic Development Officers in relation to securing largely Scottish Government funding in 25-26 and in delivering on the Comhairle strategic priorities and helping our communities realise the significant scale of their ambition. So we've had significant successes despite the fiscal challenges and increasing complexity of the funding environment. If I take you to 6.4, and that's in relation to IPF 2025, the projects have progressed well. We've had Scalpy recently completed, Leverborough completing in mid-August. In Ness, they're opening their new cafe next week and hope to open the shop again at the end of July. And the North Uist Community and Heritage Centre is progressing well. That's a multi-phase project, also supported by RCGF and CRP. In terms of IPF 2026, the deadline was at the beginning of June. 3 projects were put forward. So we had the Youth Council of Voluntary Organisations. That was a renovation and internal reconfiguration to provide space for their member organisations, and also conduct an options appraisal to look at ways to accommodate the thrift shop, which is very popular across youth community. That was an IPF ask of just over 100,000 against total project costs of 137,000. Also on the list was Grimsey Community Association, and that was a project to link their community hall, cafe and exhibition and post office space to the museum building. Quite a significant project with an ask of 600,000 from IPF against total project costs of just over £1 million. And the third, an ask of 137,000 from IPF to create a path from the visitor centre at Callanish to the scheduled monument area. And that was against total project costs of 237,000. Turning to RCGF 2025, again, hugely significant achievement for the team. The Comhairle Aeroscape project is progressing very well. Again, a multi-phase project with other funding from CRP and quite a list of other funding sources. North Uist Community and Heritage Centre, as I said, is an IPF and RCGF and CRP project. And very pleased to be able to confirm that the Hebrides People project at Northton, that's now fully funded, and they hope to commence construction mid-July. Unfortunately, RCGF 2026 remains paused. We've had no indication whether that will open for 2026, but nevertheless, we are working with a number of quite significant projects just to make sure that they are positioned should the scheme reopen. Similar story for the Nature Restoration Fund. Again, letter of offer awaited. We do know we will get some funding, but the level of that is yet to be confirmed. I think it's also worth highlighting that the work of the Economic Development Officers extends far beyond just pulling together funding applications and submitting them to funders. We maintain a pipeline project list. I checked it today. There's just under 70 projects on the list, and the team are regularly engaged with all the projects on the list to make sure that they're positioned appropriately and shaped in line with the various funding streams that exist. They also support groups to navigate business planning, compliance, and the various consenting regimes. and their work continues well beyond funding approvals. They support projects through consenting, construction, through to completion and project close down. So I guess in summary, an established system, it works very well and consistently brings investment throughout the Outer Hebrides, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Alison. Comprehensive summary of the report. Any questions from members? Councillor Dr. Francis Murray.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for the report, Alison. Not so much a question, but I just found it really very useful to see all these funds in the one report with their names and their acronyms, because sometimes you do get a wee bit, well, I do get a bit confused by all of these, and I think it is really useful to see that in the one report and to be able to see that significant investment that's coming in and to be able to refer to it, I hope, in the future. So thanks very much for that. It's really useful.
Thanks, Francis. I think a briefing is going to be prepared to do just that, to outline to members exactly what funds are available and to signpost people to them, so we can signpost our community groups to the funding available. Councillor Kenneth MacLeod.
Yeah, I just want to thank Alison and her team for all their work and the support especially for the projects in our ward down here. Say Scalpa Community Centre, it's just been handed over to the community. Leverborough's nearly done, and the excellent news with the Hebrides people. Now the final bit in place, and that major project will be going ahead and it's ready to go. Hopefully in the next couple of months, and it'll be a huge boost to us in Harris, especially down in South Harris there, where with the new housing and also hopefully with the arrival of the ferries, it's quite an exciting time.
Thank you, Mr. MacLeod. Any other? If not, the reports for noting. Thank you. Item 9 is the Scottish Local Authorities Economic Development Indicative Framework Report 24-25. The report updates members on the publication of the framework, and Donald MacDonald is going to speak to the report and answer any questions.
Thank you, Chair. Very briefly, you'll note that the data contained in the report, we've been reporting on this framework now for around 10-15 years. It encapsulates March 24 to April 25. Now, for internal reasons within Slade and the improvement service, this year's framework report was released very, very late, though we thought it was worthwhile bringing the report forward. So there are a number of indicators that are worth highlighting. More positively, I can confirm that collection of data and collation for our submission for 25-26 is almost complete, and I would anticipate having that done by the end of the month. So hopefully we'll have a similar report with our 25-26 data before the end of the calendar year, all being well.
Thank
I'll
you.
try and answer any questions if there are.
Thank you. Any questions for Donald? If not, Dr. Francis Murray.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think there's a lot of really, really positive stuff in this, and hoping that the current report will be similarly positive. But when you read things like one, I think we quite often comment on an education report, 96.2% of 16 to 19-year-olds in positive destinations, but also the good or very good life satisfaction, 89.6%, and the social enterprises, which I think we'll see more of later in a subsequent report, per 10,000 of the population being as high as it is. And sometimes I think it's maybe part of our condition to get very much focused on the not such good news. But if we are trying to attract people to the island and we're trying to retain people, I think sometimes we need to be laying a lot more emphasis on these good statistics. There's other ones there too, the business survival rates and others I could refer to. But I think it is incumbent on us to spread the good news about our communities, as well as voice our concerns when there are things to be concerned about. Because if we are unremittingly negative, then it does become a self-fulfilling prophecy. And there is much to celebrate. And I think this data shows us that.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. I think that's a very important point to make, and perhaps we can raise awareness about this to the public, maybe in the form of a press release to highlight these statistics, which are very encouraging. Any other comments or questions? If not, the report's for noting. Thank you. Item 10 is the Business Gateway Service Performance Update for 25-26. The reports provide members with an update on the performance of the service for the last year, and Norman McLean is here to speak to the report. Norman. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. This report updates the Committee on Business Gateway performance during 25-26, a year marked by economic uncertainty, rising costs and workforce challenges. Despite this, performance remains strong with increased business confidence reflected in 55 startups supported, which was up from 41 last year, and over 90 jobs created or safeguarded, exceeding key targets. While inquiries and growth proposals dipped slightly, overall engagement remained positive with high customer satisfaction and strong outcomes across funding, fisheries, digital support and partnership activity. There's a couple of updates to the report since it was written. In section 2.4, a new scheme has now been agreed with HIE to replace OES called the Early Enterprise Support Scheme. This has since been launched and offers grants of up to £5,000 to new or existing businesses up to 5 years old operating in key sectors. There's also an issue with the data presented in section 6.7. We sourced this information from our national database, which has been updated since the report was originally prepared with the corrected data. If members would like, we can provide the revised figures, which still show our area performing at the top of the table. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Norman. More positive, upbeat news there. Any questions? No. No. Thank you, Norman, and your team for all the work you're doing and the progress that's been made year on year. It's Business Gateway. Okay, then the report is for noting. Thank you. Item 11 is the Community-Led Local Development Programme 25-26. The report provides members with a review of the Scottish Government Community-Led Local Development Programme and an update on the last year's activities. And Myra is here to speak to the report.
This is the annual report about the Scottish Government funded CLLD or Community-Led Local Development Programme, just to update members on progress in 2025-26 and our plans for the current year. I would say after a few years of uncertainty about the programme year on year, it seems to be a bit more stable. Last year we got our allocation into 2 tranches quite early on. We got a full allocation of about 322,000 for the year. That has to cover all staff and administration costs and so on. The vast majority of that was made available to projects via either the CLLD fund administered by the LAG or the YLAG fund. Between the 2 funds, they handed out well over 230,000 worth of the overall budget. This year's allocation came through even earlier as a single tranche, which gives us some reassurance that the Scottish Government is getting the message about the value of CLLD. For this year, we have been allocated in the region of £335,000, and the programme is well underway. In particular, just to make members aware, both YLAG and the LAG's CLLD fund are live just now and open for applications for another 2 weeks. Closing deadline for that is the 1st of July. A couple of points I would like to draw members' attention to. Under 5.5, reference is made to a national CLLD network. There has been a lot of talk about that. It is now well and truly underway. Funding has been secured for a staff resource for the current year. The that this network has two main functions. First of all, to provide coordination between the various LAGs. There are LAGs in 20 areas of Scotland just now, each working to some extent within a silo. So it's hoped to have closer coordination between them, sharing of good practice and so on. But also we're aware of the importance to have that voice at national level, that united voice that represents rural communities in particular to Scottish Government, but also other decision makers. So we're very hopeful that the national network will help with that. And as a first step, there should be a fairly strong CLLD representation, including Outer Hebrides representation at the Royal Highland Show this weekend, and we have been assured that there will be quite strong engagement from the new government, including from our Cabinet Secretary, ministers, and I believe the First Minister is planning to attend the show as well. The other point to draw your attention to, I hope you all remember the visit from our Youth Local Action Group, the YLAG, towards the end of last year. Again, they have been given their budget for the year. They've got plenty of plans. Their fund is live. They are meeting with the Scottish Government's Islands team tomorrow to discuss the new National Islands Plan. And I suppose just to remember, a reminder that when they were here, they were quite keen to continue engaging with you. So if there is any opportunities for the YLAG to engage either with councillors or the Comhairle more widely, they would be very keen to hear. And happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Myra. Any questions on a successful programme being delivered? If not, recommendation of 3.1. Thank you, Myra, for all you're doing. Item 12 is the Outer Hebrides Economic Strategy. Report provides members with an annual update on the strategy for 25 to 35, and Anne Murray will speak to the report.
Thank you, Chair. So the report provides you with an annual update on the progress that we're making in delivering the Outer Hebrides Economic Strategy. This strategy was approved last year, and it was agreed then that an annual action plan update would be provided. So the body of the report really just provides a recap of the strategy, and then there's an update brief update against the action plan within the appendix. So, I'll just kind of go to the conclusion of the report, and then I can pick up on any questions on the detail. Just to say really that we have delivered activity in line with the direction of the economic strategy. So it's been a good tool for focusing our limited resources against. We're working closely with HIE in particular on a number of these actions and sharing there's kind of shared visibility of the action plan with HIE. There's been significant achievements, as already touched upon, in terms of delivering external funding streams, support that we give to key sectors and community-led projects, and also provision of business advice and support. Where there have been restrictions to areas of work, either because of our internal resources or financial, we have been able to mitigate some of that through the good collaboration that we have with HIE. And I suppose just the other kind of key thing, I suppose, that's coming out and is worth highlighting is just the challenge that structure and the kind of infrastructure is posing to economic growth, and the extent that that's coming to the forefront, particularly in areas such as housing and childcare and all these other enablers that are required to attract population and fill current and future vacancies. So I suppose that's what we're seeing, is that there are opportunities here, but that it is challenging, I think, to get the workforce in place and housed and able to fill them. So I'm happy to take any questions or feedback on the strategy. It is intended to be an iterative document that we can respond to feedback from members over its duration.
Thank you, Anne. Any members want to ask any questions? Councillor McCormack.
Thank you very much indeed, Chair. And this is a very interesting meeting, really, Chair, because a lot of very good work has been demonstrated, and we really ought to brag a wee bit more about it, I think. I want to make reference to paragraph 2.2, And just to recognise the situation that we are in, there is the potential for benefits to come from renewable energy developments. But the realisation of these opportunities can only be achieved if they are supported by infrastructure investment, particularly around roads, transport, digital connectivity and housing. That is a good statement, and that's something that we could work on. And there are another two statements that I would just like to emphasise in paragraph 6.1. There is tangible evidence of significant economic, social and community benefit arising from our renewable energy resources. And at the bottom of that same section, transport infrastructure and housing options have improved from the 2025 position, fuel poverty has reduced, and there is increased resilience against climate change. And I'm delighted that these are stated so emphatically in this document as aims for us to take forward and something that we really want to achieve, so that we get something positive out of the developments. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. McCormick. Absolutely. I think it's a Biella, if not. Councillor Seen.
I'll have to move it this way.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, Chair. It's not much a question, and it's just a comment in terms of obviously the importance of child care into our strategy, general strategy, repopulation and everything. And I think sometimes we reach the fact that we all agree that child care is an important factor that we need to deliver in a proper way to attract younger generation. But when it comes to the funding that and financing it, sometimes we're a bit hesitant. And as a call, I think we need to reach a point where this is our strategy. It's an important factor that's going to play an important role into the repopulation and delivering our aims and our priorities. And I think we should fund it, and sometimes we should make it a priority in terms of funding.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Seen. Councillor George Murray.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Anne. I just wanted you to, what does power circle mean? Who a power circle?
It does. Yes.
So that's the name of a consultancy firm that we had doing some work for us on this peer-to-peer energy market concept. So it's the name of a company.
Okay. Callum.
Yeah, just a question on 6.3. The key sector is renewable energy and a just transition to net zero. Can you give me a description of that? How do we achieve net zero?
We're not doing therapy for climate change deniers today, but okay then. The reports for noting. Thank you, everyone. The next item is item 13, Community Benefits Charters. The report seeks approval of proposals to develop a community benefits charter, and Anne's here again to speak to the report.
Thank you, Chair. So I suppose this follows on really from some of what we covered in the last report. So it sets out proposals for the development of a community benefits charter, which is really proposing that we articulate the Comhairle's expectations in terms of community benefit arising from renewable energy and associated infrastructure. The report notes that community benefit is an established element of renewable energy development. There are, the Comhairle, I think, has been clear in its ambitions and there has been much achieved, but there is a sense that there's a need to provide a bit more clarity and consistency in terms of the Comhairle's expectations. So, as I say, there is established good practice here. There's a lot in place, but it's felt that it would now be beneficial to move towards some kind of charter that really sets that out, reflects the landscape, but also sets the aspiration at the right level. If members are happy with the need to set out the Comhairle's policy position, we'll be looking to provide a draft to the September series. This report is going to Policy and Resources tomorrow as well.
That's, I think we're all agreed on that we need to put it in tablets of stone exactly what our expectations are going forward. Mr. McCormick.
And we did we not take a decision at the last series on a number?
The megawatts, price per megawatt.
Yes.
Yes, we did.
Yes, we did. Okay.
Yes, anyone else? No. Okay, the reports for agreeing with recommendations 3.1, and as Anne said, it's going to PNR tomorrow as well. Item 14 is the planning fees report for discretionary services. Report seeks approval of additions to the scheme of fees to be levied for discretionary services delivered by the Comhairle's Development Management Service. And Morag's online to speak to the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The Comhairle approved a scheme of fees for pre-application discussions for major national developments in January of this year. It's now proposed that the scheme be developed with fees levied for additional discretionary services, including pre-application advice and discussions for local scale developments, and also for non-material variations and the discharge of conditions. The proposed scheme of fees is set out in Appendix 1 to the report. Happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Morag. Are these figures in line with the national fees with other local authorities? Or is it, are we making up our own fees, estimates?
Yeah, so the regulations set the fees, the maximum fee you can charge for a discharge of conditions or for a non-material variation, and they are very minimal charges. A local authority can set its own charges for pre-application discussions or pre-application advice. Allied to the fee, you must set out within your scheme what developers can expect for payment of that fee. And that detail is also set out in the appendix.
Okay. Any questions on the fees? Agreed? Okay. Okay, the recommendations there as far as this committee's interests are concerned, recommendation 3.1 for your agreement. Item 15 is a development plan scheme. And Mary's going to speak to this. They're seeking approval of the 2026 development plan scheme and draft participation statement for public consultation.
Thank you, Chair. The development plan scheme, this is the annual statement that sets out the programme of work to maintain and renew the development plan, and also a draft participation statement which sets out the anticipated engagement around these work streams. Under new development plan regulations, we are obligated to now consult on the participation statement element of the DPS. We propose to do this over the summer and we'll report back at the September series on that. We've historically had quite minimal input or response on that, but we will report back. The DPS sets out the programme for the preparation of the new LDP, which is a different process from the current LDP. The main focus of the work in the coming year will be on bringing together the policy topic papers, which are the culmination and summation of the background reports which underpin the evidence report stage. And on submission of the evidence report to ministers for the gate check process, which aims to assess the sufficiency of evidence in order to progress to the next stage of the preparation of the new LDP. In the coming period, we intend to hold a workshop style session with members to discuss the emerging issues from the evidence report stage and what direction the evidence is suggesting. There will be further workshops with members as we progress to more detailed policy areas for which we'll be seeking your input. The report before you seeks approval of the development plan scheme and authority to consult publicly on the draft participation statement element of it, which we'll report back on. Happy to take any questions, Chair. Thank you.
Any questions? If not, we agree to recommendations 3.1. Thanks, Mary. Item 16, Scottish Government Infrastructure Strategy Consultation. Report seeks homologation of the Corner's responses to the Government's recent consultation on this strategy. And John Cunningham's going to speak to the report.
Thanks, Chair. Just to note that it is a homologation we're seeking today. We're past the deadline for submission, so the submission has gone in, but we do have flexibility to contact the team with any additional views members might have. We're taking the opportunity to comment on a 10-year infrastructure strategy 2027 to 2037 and challenging some of the assumptions there, particularly in regard to urban bias, excessive regionalisation, asking for multi-year funding to go along with the 10-year programme, looking for early stage collaboration across the CPP, pending public sector reform, given that it covers assets across all public sector partners, looking for much stronger island impact assessment and an increased role for the planning service. And finally, a plea that community resilience is considered alongside just straight value for money to make sure that we get services that sustain infrastructure that sustains community. But happy to take any questions, Chair.
Okay, thanks, John. As John said, this is for homologation. Chair, any comments on strategy? If not, we can agree the recommendation 3.1. Item 15 is reports outstanding, and that's for noting. And the next scheduled meeting of the committee will be Tuesday, 22nd of September, 2026. And thank you for attendance here in the chamber and online, and for all your contributions, both from members and officers. Thank you. And the Education Committee will resume in about 5 minutes. Thank you.